It has been, I think, a while. I can't quite remember when the last time that I... I'm sure if it's working. Yes, it is. Can't remember the last time I streamed was. I think it was before the Epstein list. So we have hit another point of... Okay, so... two major... I'm sorry, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the idea that this is still going on, that this is actually real. Because to some extent, I don't think I actually internalize this is real until I sit here at the Gate Jump spot, where I actually only ever talk about things that actually happened in real life. It feels like it's just fiction bouncing around my head until I sit down here and jump over the gates and make it a point. So it's obvious that for Americans who are still passive, which is the vast majority of Americans, that there is no Rubicon. There is no point at which they will actually fight back. And this is terrible to hear, and I hope it's not true. If you are listening, this is your call to start doing something. Kill some of these executives. Kill some of these people. I mean, the men in power here are pathetic weaklings. They're not surrounded by private security details. They're people like Mark Zuckerberg and Peter Thiel and J.D.Vance who, like, go out to their private properties. You could definitely just kill them. Like, especially people like Mark Zuckerberg and Peter Thiel who don't have Secret Service protections. And of course Elon Musk. Let's not let that guy go. I kind of figured it was a given. The one I don't really care about is Donald Trump, because he's probably going to die anyways, and two, if Donald Trump dies, J.D.Vance takes the lead. If J.D.Vance dies, Speaker Mike Johnson takes the lead. In fact, I think all three of those figures pretty much posted exactly that. They posted their little succession pilgrimage, and I'm going to pull that up. Look, it's abundantly clear this administration is utterly incompetent. They're dictators because they say something and Congress bends to their will. And Trump does control the military. This is terrifying. But at the same time, I look at these people and I think, I mean, first off, they're human beings. Human beings are incredibly easy to kill in the modern era. You have guns. You have bombs. Like, these people move around. It's not like Trump and Vance and Johnson and whoever are in a gated fort. The president always goes out and about. Usually that's like a sign of how we have a democracy, because everyone respects the president or something. But I'm getting really fed up with the online leftist mentality of posting memes that are like, firebomb a Walmart, firebomb a Target. Not really though, just in Minecraft. It's like it's a joke to them. When people do this to me, they're no better than, they're leftists and they're saying leftist things, but they're effectively in the same spot as the people that post pumped up kicks memes. I look at them and I see a 15-year-old pissed about a math test that's coming up on a Friday. How can you put a test on a Friday? Or on a Monday. How can you put a test on a Monday? And then post a picture of like 2 assault rifles and it says, don't come to school tomorrow. That's the mentality that I look at these firebomb Walmart, not really though, in Minecraft posts with. Right now, you shouldn't be posting memes about firebombing a Walmart. And I'm not saying that because I'm going to be one of those pro-clutchers that's going to be like, oh, no, you can't post that. It's violent. I don't want violence. No one should be violent. Everyone should be peaceful. Because, let's be real, the only peace that America has ever known is that of institutionalizing and arresting and detaining people according to law, with officers given protections by law. It's peaceful only because you've labeled the aggressors peacekeepers. And I'm going to put a pin on that because I want to go back to that in the context of Trump's recent executive order. But to the whole idea, I think you should be thinking violent thoughts and you should be doing violent things. And this is why I get incredibly angry when I see people trying to pretend like this is normal and claiming that it's for their mental health. Your mental health isn't helping anyone. No, you going back to work and being in a good place to do work is actually just boosting this system further. The first step to stopping Trump, not the first step, it doesn't have to be a thing, but one of the things we can do to stop MAGA, to stop the Republicans, because this is more than just Trump, it's the whole Republican Party. What we can do to stop the Republicans is crash the economy. That is actually what I am suggesting, yes. I am suggesting a general strike, and I'm not just going to post general strike, do a general strike, why isn't there a general strike, and then just, go on the rest of my life. I have cut back every purchase I make. I only buy groceries. That is it. The government pays my rent. And that is all I do, is buy groceries. I don't work. I long ago said I wasn't going to work for this country. And that I was going to do anything I could. Even if it meant, if my money runs out, I go commit a crime. And probably get arrested. If I don't, I commit another crime. And I'm keeping vague on that. Because I don't think you should give out the plans publicly. Now, I don't think the feds are actually watching me or anything. I don't think I'm big enough for the feds to care. I think, realistically, no one's listening to what I say here. And this is probably all going into a vault that will be opened 2 or 3 years from now, and people will look back at it. That's why I'm doing this. I don't think anyone pays attention to what I say now. I don't even send these videos to the people that I talk to. I'm just keeping this here. This is my little storage. It's my thoughts in a convenient little location. I say 2 years, but no, I don't think it's gonna be 2 years. I think it's gonna be less than that. You protecting your mental health so that you can go back to work, or so that you can support local businesses, or that you can be a part of keeping this idea, this veil of normalcy, that's not a win. That's a loss for another loss for the total people. It's framed as, I'm doing less on this so that I can do more in this. I'm doing less in thing 1 so I can do more in thing 2. But thing 1, being political activism, is really fucking important. It's the most important thing. We could have stopped this peacefully by not voting for Donald Trump. But instead, we live in a world where half the voters, more than half the voters, voted for Donald Trump. And yes, Kamala ran a shit campaign. I'm not covering that up. Kamala ran a shit campaign. That's a part of the problem too. And the DNC screwed us over. Let's be honest, they screwed us over. They screwed us over by hard platforming Clinton in 2016 when Bernie Sanders, I do believe, would have beaten Trump easily. They screwed us by getting all behind Joe Biden, and then Joe Biden deciding that even though he promised he'd be a single-term president, he decided to run for a second term. And he had all that drama with his son and his family. And his son was also supporting Joe Biden's decision to run for a second term when this man was quite literally dying. So he was dying in office. He was going through full-on cognitive decline. Trump is also going through full-on cognitive decline. But here's the thing. Americans voted for Trump over Kamala Harris because of how shaken and screwy that whole election was. It was really screwy. And if Republicans had done the things that Kamala Harris and the Democrats did, leftists and liberals alike would be pointing at at the Republican campaign and saying, look at that, that's crazy, undemocratic. But Kamala Harris, I can't get over Kamala Harris telling her staffers to pull people and then telling her staffers, regardless of what the people say, answer that Israel is not of concern. What the fuck? You're supposed to be representing the people. You fail as a politician if you don't represent the people. Would she have kept democracy going? Yeah. But that doesn't give her an excuse to blatantly disregard the will of the people. I mean, come on. polling people on an issue and then answering the issue for them. Ridiculous. And why couldn't Kamala Harris, if Kamala Harris, because I heard a lot of liberals saying she wanted a two-state solution, I could see it in her eyes. Okay, you could stare into her eyes and find her true heart, her true meaning. Great, she's a politician. Run a campaign publicly, transparently. Tell people what you're going to support. Look, Donald Trump outwardly said he would lower grocery prices, and he would say that he wouldn't support war in the Middle East. That's what Donald Trump said. And Donald Trump outwardly said that he didn't support Project 2025. Now, he's a fucking liar. He's a liar on that. But he gave concrete policies, and he ran a campaign that for most was more appealing. How? I don't know. Probably because the media didn't even run stories on Project 2025. Like, they ran a little bit, and then Trump said he wasn't going to support it, and the media just took his word for it. They took the word of a pathological liar on whether he was going to support Project 2025. Why? Well, the answer is because the media is not on our side. We all kind of know that. Fuck, I didn't want to do any of this. I didn't want to get in any of this. I voted for Kamala. Why do I have to go through this? But we do. We do have to go through this. So stop pretending, because, listen, you're not going to convince me of anything. You're not special because you don't want to deal with the shit that's going on in the United States right now. I don't want to deal with the shit that's going on in this country. I sure as hell don't. But if you're an American, whatever your excuse is, it's not important to me. Do you know how much fucking trauma I have? Do you know how much the last year has unearthed all my fucking trauma? I, as a person, have completely died and just become this endless blob of despair and pain and suffering. Do you think that your excuses are going to get through to me? Because they're not. I have zero patience for this whole not political, peaceful, protecting my peace bullshit. I have zero patience for that. If you're not at the very least joining an organization to assist the homeless, to assist the poor, to run a soup kitchen, to run an advocacy group, but not advocacy to get people to go out and vote in 2026. I want to break that. I want to break that mirage that you have. Because there is not going to be a 2026 election. Unbelievably, Donald Trump has actually already claimed, and there's been leaked reports of how he's planning on suppressing. I mean, he's doing it blatantly. Even from the SAVE Act that would disenfranchise married women, which is supported by J.D.Vance and Mike Johnson, saying 1 vote per family. Yeah. 1 vote for the head of the house, who is statistically more likely to be a man, who is statistically more likely to support Trump. You have Trump going into Texas, telling Greg Abbott and the Republicans, telling them outright to gerrymander. I mean, it shouldn't have to be this blatant. You should know that Donald Trump, a man who attempted the the Jan 6, 2021 insurrection, that man is not going to protect your constitutional right to vote. You should know that. He views losing as a failure. He views that as a failure of the people around him. And the Republicans that supported Democrats in respecting the electoral votes, yeah, those are gone. They are gone. You have a handful of Tea Party Republicans. Handful of them. The vast majority of the Republicans are MAGA. And most of the others will cave to MAGA. There was one Republican that dissented against the big, beautiful bill. One. And that individual, that Republican from Kentucky, Representative Thomas Massey of Kentucky, and Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania. See, a lot of people were like, oh, I don't support this, but you know what? They still did vote for it. And those people are not going to save you, even if the majority of Americans vote against Donald Trump in an election, however fair or unfair it is. even if Donald Trump loses the next election, do you think that Speaker Mike Johnson, who has supported the big lie, who has said that Donald Trump was cheated in 2020, do you think that J.D.Vance and Speaker Mike Johnson are going to vote to uphold the electoral vote? Do you think they're going to vote to uphold the results of that election? Do you think that Speaker Mike Johnson... Now, J.D.Vance, supposedly the vice president certifying, is simply a ceremonial gesture that doesn't have the right to actually say no. But the head of the House does. I mean, he doesn't usually do it, but he can. And what's going to happen? Is the House of Representatives going to vote to choose a new Speaker of the House that's going to respect the the will of the people, the electoral vote? Do you think that's going to happen? Because I don't. The only way that the current MAGA hold on our government is going to fall is through the violence of the people. There is no reason to wait till 2026. Every day we wait, more people get captured, detained, arrested, put in foreign prisons run by the US government that they're supposed to never return from. And let me just remind you, or maybe not remind, and you tell me what you're waiting for at this point. After 125 days in silence, detained inside an El Salvador concrete fortress built to disappear people, André Hernandez Romero is finally home in Venezuela, alleging he was tortured, raped, and denied food while detained under a Trump administration deportation order that erased him from society. Hernandez Romero was one of more than 250 Venezuelan men expelled from the United States and sent to confinement at CSOT, a dystopian prison described as a modern-day gulag in El Salvador under the revived Alien Enemies Act. President Donald Trump used the wartime-era law to deport people without hearings or asylum screenings. For more than 4 months, advocates have been calling attention to the case and demanding freedom for the gay makeup artist. It was an encounter with torture and death, Hernandez Romero, 32, told journalists at his family home in Capacho that Wednesday, describing how he and others were beaten, shot with rubber projectiles, just like Americans on the streets, and confined in dark cells, that's a thing America does also to its prisoners, solitary confinement, before they were suddenly freed on Friday. Many of our fellows have wounds from the nightsticks. They have fractured ribs, fractured fingers and toes, marks from the handcuffs, he said. Others have marks on their chests, on their face from the projectiles. Video on social media showed a tearful reunion. I'm not going to play that. Though he entered the United States illegally at the San Diego border, appeared for an appointment that the U.S. government gave him, and passed an initial credible fear interview, federal agents cited his tattoos as alleged proof, Crown's reading Mom and Dad, as alleged proof of membership in the Tren de Aragua gang, which is just bullshit. They know that. Everyone knows that. This is an excuse to disappear people who are brown. His crime was being an immigrant and brown. He was legal, actually, and he was still sent away to a camp. They took me to solitary confinement and abused me. I was forced to perform oral sex on an officer. 3 officers grabbed the batons and passed them over my private parts, and for me that was just too devastating. It was my integrity as a human being, as a person of the LGBTQ community, that brought me to my lowest point. And of course, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, which is a part of this, doing this, dismissed BB's claims Tuesday, calling the deported men criminal illegal gang members, and he's saying they don't give a fuck. They are raping people in these prisons. They are raping people. If you don't care now, what would make you care? They are raping people. Where is the point? I'm seeing absolutely zero action from America. Zero actions. And you are also talking about protecting your peace, shielding yourself from the news. What else are you doing? What are you doing with your protected peace? What are you doing with that now? Are you going out and feeding the homeless? Or are you going to work and going to school? Because I feel like it's the latter. And when I get down to it, when I push people hard enough, they admit it's the latter. Here's my action step. Here it is. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Define a point in something the government could do that would make you actually fight back physically with violence. I don't care if it's going to your local police station and just stabbing the shit out of whatever the first officer you see is. Or here's the thing, get a gun and go in and shoot. Right? I do not care if you shoot citizens of this country, or if you shoot officers, or if you shoot politicians. I mean, try for the politicians. But at the very least, create some chaos. Because the more we sit by and let this happen, you know how it's gonna end? It's gonna end with all of us being destroyed by MAGA, destroyed by the Republicans, destroyed by the police. I would rather have people killing randomly. Because what we have right now is MAGA killing deliberately, Republicans killing deliberately. They are killing people. They are sending them to camps. They are raping people. They are continuing to abduct and rape people. Those who have committed no crime. And let me highlight this executive order, because this is what you have to look forward to. And before you say your life is too important, or you have other things or people who care about you, the alternative to this isn't you having the life that you have now. The alternative to this is likely going to look like you in a camp, or you under a dystopian government at threat of being put in a camp. Okay? Because you don't need to even commit a crime to be taken by these camps. By the way, first thing I want to highlight, and you know what I'm going to do first? We're going to also get the actual order. And this is the part where I wanna put the Democrats on fire too. So, the order: ending crime and disorder on America's streets. Throwing this over here. By the authority of No, I'm just gonna do this. We don't have to put up gates. Seek the reversal of federal and state judicial precedents, aka, hold on, let's read the first. Termination of consent decrees that impede civil commitment of individuals with mental illness or living on the streets. Let me tell you what that means. Federal or state judicial precedents. That is court cases where people have said, I was abducted from my home by officers who declared that they had the right to arrest me without a crime, simply for mental illness, which, by the way, is not something that's codified, so anyone can fucking declare it. Do you really trust officers to declare mental illness? This is a suppression tactic. This is the most powerful suppression tactic. They could abduct you and me, us both, right now. They could break into our homes, declare us mentally ill, and disappear us to a camp where we will be raped and sexually abused. I don't have the article up. We'll be raped and sexually abused. Raped, sexually abused. Could happen to you right now under this order, which is, let me remind you, in effect. This has happened. This is law. So they're going to make it so that every time that someone who was abducted, potentially raped, and potentially sexually abused, and has sued the federal and state government to make sure that that didn't happen again to someone else, they're going to reverse that. In other words, they're going to say you don't have to actually follow that, so you can go back to abducting people off the street, out of their own homes, out of anywhere. Anywhere. The police can go in anywhere. Because this isn't... The Fourth Amendment doesn't fucking matter when the police break in and then declare you as a criminal. Yeah, true. They don't have the right to press you for any evidence they gather. It all has to be thrown out because they broke the Fourth Amendment. But you're you're disappeared, you're gone. No one knows where you are. Provide assistance to state and local governments for the identification, adoption, and implementation of civil commitment. Yeah. Assistance to state and local governments. Okay, what is that going to look like? Well, federal facilities, where you're going to get disappeared. Federal agents, like ICE officers, are probably going to have the ability to declare people mentally ill and abduct them then. So they don't even need to... So citizenship doesn't matter, which has already been the case. They've already abducted people who were legal immigrants and who were legal U.S. citizens. Now they can abduct people openly, admitting they're U.S. citizens, and they've already been doing it, but they can do it more. You have nothing at this point. You've lost everything. If you're going to stay in your home and you're going to isolate yourself from the news and just focus on nicer things, what are you fighting for? What do you want to live in? You're going to school, right? You're going to work. You're going to school. You're building these steps towards a future. What future? What is this the future that you want? Do you want to live in this world? Because let me remind you, there are things worse than death. And I'm sure that anyone who's taken under these laws wishes for death. We've already seen it. Because let me remind you, criminalization of disability is a thing. Institutionalization has happened. It is an ongoing thing. It has been increasing since the end of Obama's term. It never fully disappeared. And even governors, so-called Democrats, a last-minute change to one of Governor Gavin Newsom's signature mental health proposals this week, shocked advocates, could open the door to the involuntary institutionalization of people with mental health illnesses. And they deliberately stripped language prohibiting the money from being used on involuntary confinements, which means abducting people. Let me remind you, abducting people, abducting and disappearing people, taking them and arresting them without even a crime committed. So here's my challenge to you. Well, I'll go through the article first. The administration at the last possible moment put in language that completely changed the intent of this bill, because there's homeless people in California and they want to just disappear them. The bond measure, $6.4 billion, has been touted by Newsom. Now, Newsom's speaking out against this White House order, right? Here we have Newsom saying, this is bad, you can't abduct people, you shouldn't put out an order saying you're going to abduct people. Oh, here's one. She acknowledged it resembles the governor's own approach, which has emphasized clearing street encampments and bolstering mental health and drug abuse treatment, which includes institutionalization, involuntary commitment, involuntary institutionalization, open the door, because they took the language out that prohibits the money from being used on involuntary confinements. Now, here's the politics game, right? This is what the politics game does. They say that they oppose this order, and Democrats point to Republicans and say, this is bad. But the Democrats were doing the same thing. And I want to highlight the fact that Republicans didn't even have to make a new system. This is a system that has been touted and strengthened and reinforced by Democrats and Republicans alike. You know what else has been touted and strengthened and given protections by Democrats and Republicans alike? ICE. ICE has. This is the problem with America. You can't just vote your way out of this, because Democrats did it too. This has been going on. It happens in every state. I'm pretty sure you can get involuntary committed in every single state in America. If that, and I see no one even talking about this until now, where everyone's talking about Trump's order. Are you going to take away the underlying system? Because I know a lot of people think that this is actually the better option, that involuntary commitment of individuals is somehow a better or more peaceful solution to letting them live independently. Because surely the state knows what's in your best interest and can just take you away from your home. Honestly, I should probably just pivot this whole stream to just digging into that subject. I'd rather do it. Except we have to talk about the sexual abusers and pedophiles that are running our country and sending people to sexual abuse and rape camps. And also, I want to highlight ICE detention in the government camps, which continued under Biden. Children were separated from their parents, confined to beds in so-called medical wards, where they were drugged out of their mind to the point where they could hardly speak or walk. These children are being bussed around in wheelchairs even though they had no physical disability. And I look at that and I say, oh my fucking God, those children are being raped. You've drugged the children out of their mind to the point where they can't even walk. They're just incubators. They're just captive humans. And I've seen images of these wards, children, taped down to their beds. Some of them were at ICE camps, some of them were in hospitals in the country. Strapped down to their beds where they can't even leave. They have no access to the outside world. They have no one else can see them. These aren't public. Strapped down to beds in gowns. And I look at that and I say, oh my fucking God, those children, this is like the next sex scandal. I mean, why would you need children in gowns, strapped down to beds, in a row, like that, drugged out of their minds, where they can barely even stay awake, if they even are. They're unconscious. Or they're like half conscious, their eyes are open, but they're not talking, they're not registering what you're saying. Is that not just to make a hall of sex slaves? Is the point not just to make a rape house? They're drugging the kids to the point where they're not even conscious. If I were to do that, I'd be branded a sex pest. I'd be put on the sex offender registry, and rightfully so. And this has been allowed to continue in America. No one cares. Everyone wants to deal with happier, more peaceful things. While children are being imprisoned, adults are being imprisoned, raped. Here, while the public of the executive order has led to panic coverage in the media and online, disabled and unhoused people have been sounding the alarm for years. Disabled people have been telling you that the weaponization of disability is happening. Says disability, ongoing scapegoating, abandonment, confinement, and social murder of people with psychiatric and other disabilities. I'm opening those for. The dystopia has always been here. Thank you.
How do we make sure that injustice people are not excluded?
Right, /DeathPanelPod. And if you'd like to help us out a little bit more, share the show with your friends, post about your favorite episodes, pre-order Health Communism, and follow us at DeathPanel_.
Health Communism. Awesome.
So I am thrilled to welcome our guest today, Dan Berger, who is an interdisciplinary. They have decided to be, quote, done with COVID, but that is a choice that is not on people who are incarcerated. So I want us to start not by talking about the current landscape so much, but by looking back to a policy demand that came into play very early on in the pandemic, which, Dan, you were very vocal about. This was the idea to free incarcerated people, not just because of political, moral, social, and economic reasons, but to free people for the purposes of public health.
See, there's a really, America's health system and the medical system, the for-profit nature, this is such a multifaceted conversation, and it's really hard to have in the monologue when I can't like build off of something else that someone else is saying. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm just going to actually just unpack the whole scene. So we've often been told, and I think especially in recent years, with the conversation around school shootings, around suicides, there's always this declaration that mental health is important. And it's one of those things that people say and they don't really mean, but you still have to hear it. And it's everywhere. It's actually everywhere. It makes me it makes me really angry to hear it, especially as someone who has been through homelessness, and let me tell you, they don't care. They don't care. The system does not care. You feel like you're intruding in everything you do, and they have like a 3-year-long wait list. So, as far as that goes, it's a whole bunch of virtue signaling And like, I honestly don't. I wish that they wouldn't say it. I wish that this country cared about mental health. But if I had to choose between not caring about mental health at all and pretending to care about mental health while not caring about mental health, I'd rather have it not care about mental health at all. The problem that I see, the most dangerous thing I see about current society is how it keeps people passive. It makes you think that things are happening or things are working when they aren't. And it's only when you fall on those systems, like when I was homeless, that you realize how little there is and how much danger we're all in. But then you look crazy when you say that, because people who don't have those experiences, who come from a place of privilege and have been told that these aren't issues, they just look at you and they say, no, you must be doing something wrong. Like, when we see people who commit suicide, there's often that one voice in the background that always is appended to something, end of the article, a little disclaimer, and it says, if you're in distress, there's resources that can help you. But as someone who lives in America, let me tell you, there are not resources that can help you. There are lots of people who will market to you, but there's nothing that actually will help you. Not unless you happen to have some magical solution, which I've looked for many years, and I have not found it. And I have asked people, and the people who've been through this system, who have been through the reality of life, who don't come from a place of privilege, or who are no longer in a place of privilege, or who at least spend some time not in a place of privilege, they will tell you there are no systems. The people who are homeless on the side of the road are not there because they choose not to use the systems. They're there because there are no resources. That's why those people are homeless. And the people who are depressed and anxious, every time that you hear about, a study on children being depressed, and they always say, oh, it's because of the phones. Kids would be so much happier if they didn't have phones. No, they wouldn't. The phones are the coping mechanism. Please don't take away people's coping mechanisms. And that's all they're going to do. You go into a mental ward, right? If you ever go in there. And I've had the fortune of not actually ending up in mental ward. But if you look in and you look at people who are in mental wards, they take away your phone. They drug you up on lithium. And I saw and I mentioned the Center for Children. Those children were labeled depressed because they were ripped away from their parents and didn't know where they were going to live. And so they were doped up on lithium until they couldn't fight back, and are probably being raped. This is probably happening. There's no reason to have children that are physically and mentally restrained. If you restrain them physically, that's enough. You don't need to restrain them mentally. Why would you want to restrain them mentally? Well, if you have a child that's drugged out of their mind, so they can't think or remember anything, they can't testify that you raped them. That's what it is. And that's at the core. Anytime you hear about wanting patients mentally subdued, it's sexual abuse. It's some other sort of cover your ass kind of thing. People who are tied to a bed cannot realistically interfere with what you're trying to do. The only reason you'd have them sedated mentally and not just physically restrained. Look, we have violent criminals. Do we mentally sedate them? No, we don't mentally sedate violent criminals. We put them in cells and lock the door. Now, I don't agree with that system of imprisonment, but I also know that we don't need to get more intense in that system of imprisonment because it works. It doesn't work for the people in it, but it works at preventing them from harming other people. Right? I'm telling you, I will, this is the hill I will die on. I think psychiatric drugs are the reason that we've gotten to the state of society. People have been told that it's your responsibility as a citizen to numb yourself to the pain. And if you can't do it internally, or you won't do it internally, they'll give you drugs that do it. And if you don't want to take those drugs, they'll put it in you by force. I'm effectively an outlaw in just choosing to disregard this entire system, is what I've been told. But also, we live in America, so nothing comes to you for free. They want to pay you. They want you to pay for treatment, and they market it as being your responsibility or your obligation. And now with platforms like, who you probably saw them everywhere, BetterHelp, rolls eyes. The BetterHelp thing, it was a horrible service, but what I also want to focus on is that it again pushes, or maybe piggybacks off the narrative that therapy is a necessity in this world, that everyone should have therapy, that everyone should be in therapy. Not because it's necessarily something you want, but it's poised like something that you need to do. And some people would even argue that it's for the safety of everyone. Like with those Sandy Hook ads, which, but there's other PSAs that you'll be shown. The Sandy Hook ad I'm thinking of, this ad here. This is the end scene. It's a whole love story, blah, 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 and then it ends with a school shooting. You know, like what you'd expect from a 2012 Flash game. The punchline is that there's a school shooter. And then it's like, did you see the signs? I'm not going to play the ad, but I think you can understand the general gist. These two are like, oh, hi, yeah, you're the person I was writing to. Hee hee, I love you. And then this door breaks open and this person comes in with a backpack and they're going to shoot up everyone. I don't know who the fuck thought this was a good idea to put in an ad. I mean, it and the whole joke is that throughout the whole, or not the joke, but the compelling message is that throughout the ad there were signs that this person was going to be a school shooter, and you just didn't see the signs. So it again, for you as a person to watch out for the scene around you, to watch out for the people around you, and then to recommend them to do the thing, to follow the script and get therapy. For God's sake, when we fix society, you need to understand that there's problems in order to be driven to fix problems. If you aren't feeling the pain of being in a flawed society, the only reason that you'd ever get involved in politics is to look good, which is the least effective type of political activist. And has absolutely no connection to the meaning, the stuff at hand. It's this dulling down and this suppression of emotion from people. That I keep seeing it. I keep seeing it over and over again in how we talk about ourselves. When I open up a song and then there's a fucking helpline below that, it pisses me off. Every time. Because I know Google doesn't give a fuck. It's just performative. It's purely performative mental health virtue signaling. And it's just as irritating as people who use words like unalive or grape. And I know that's more for like a automated system detection avoidance thing. But it feels the same way, whether it's trying to win over an automated system or it's trying to win over people. When your perception of mental health is that you're trying to look like you're doing the right things, so to speak, I mean, it feels like you don't care. That's what it feels like. It feels heartless, and it feels cold and uncaring. Because that's what it is. And I know we all probably have compassion fatigue at this point, and we're all distraught and feel like trash. I mean, look, it takes me a lot of willpower to even get on and do another one of these streams. I hate every moment of being alive in this world. And I suppose this is how I should feel, though, right? If I'm telling people and hoping myself, when I'm done with this game, to actually do something, well, that's probably going to end with me not being able to return to my house and not be able to live the life that I was living before. And there's this incredible bravery that's required to actually fight back, and I know that. So I'm trying to encourage that, and I'm trying to suppress and beat down anyone that's trying to discourage that. Because this system that we live in, whether it's abducting people off the street for declaring them mentally ill, or it's abducting people off the street, putting them in camps where they're raped and sexually abused, because they're gang members or illegal immigrants or brown people or Democrats or Trump opposers or whatever the standard is. It's probably going to be trans people next. I bet there's going to be a lot of sexual abuse and rape happening to trans people that are going to be abducted off the streets under this new order. And frankly, I don't see why every single trans person online isn't just constantly talking about this constantly. Because they're gonna come for you. They've made it abundantly clear that they do not value trans people. They've implied they don't value gay people or bisexual people. And I think that's true. But they've made it openly clear that they do not respect trans people. They being the Republicans and the Heritage Foundation and similar think tanks. They're coming for you. They're going to brand you mentally ill, and then under Trump's executive order, you're going to be abducted. That's what's going to happen. I know the government's coming for me, and I've known it for months. I've known it since Trump got elected. That my life is over. The career of Kelvar is over. My time making games is over, and the government's coming after me now. And the same is true for you. If you're listening to this video, there's like an 80% chance that you're a fan game person. Which means if you care, if you're in America, and you care any bit about the people around you, or the people in your community that are a part of America, this is your time to act. Because if you don't, the government's not stopping. The government's not waiting for you. The government's not waiting around for you to decide that you actually do care. And the government won't stop. Every single thing the government has done, it has gotten more blatant, more aggressive, more in your face about it. And they do this because they find it amusing. The government finds it amusing to torture us. To make it abundant. They're playing with their food. And they know that no matter how much they push, people are never going to fight back. And I say no, but I shouldn't say no because that defines that it's true. That implies that it's true. The government is smugly confident that you will do nothing to fight back. The government will laugh in your face, flip you off, and say, what are you going to do about it? Then they're going to take your dogs and cats and shoot them. Then they're going to take your children and abduct them. They're going to take children off the streets and abduct them, send them to ICE containment centers where they're drugged out of their mind, and let's be honest, they're being raped. That's what's happening, is they're being raped. There's no reason otherwise that they'd be drugged out of their mind, except to rape them. So, you are watching in real time, children get raped, get abducted, human trafficked, and raped. ICE agents pulling up to random kids on the side of the road and just grabbing them. Pulling up to 20-something-year-old students who have visas that ICE just canceled so they can abduct you and send you away. And this country will still abduct people who are quote-unquote mentally ill, quote-unquote danger to themselves or others, and put you in wards where they'll drug you out of your mind and then bill you for the privilege. Against your consent, mind you. And that's what's truly evil. Because if I had a choice between being abducted by a rapist human trafficker and being abducted by a hospital, I'd actually choose the rapist human trafficker. Because then at least if I ever escape, which is an if, in both cases, I won't get billed for the pain that I went through. America is evil, and America has always been evil. The problem is people keep on trying to carve out their little niche of normalcy to pretend like this is okay, to pretend like they can go on and live the life that they want to, and not come to face these bigger issues. That, let me remind you, they can rip you out of your home. And the only way I can rationalize this in my head is by presuming that people think that somehow they're immune, that yes, other people will get abducted out of their home and human trafficked and raped and sexually assaulted, but it'll never happen to me. Maybe because they're white, maybe because they're a US citizen, maybe because of both, maybe because... I mean, people in other countries do not want to come here because they're afraid of being detained and abducted and put in some mystery prison. Rightfully so. But the people in America, I don't see that same panic. I don't see that same call to action. I don't see that same fear. And some people will argue that fear doesn't help them, or like, what's the point of being afraid all the time? Well, the point of being afraid of this is that it should drive you to action. We're human beings. We're driven by emotion more than we are driven by rationale. I mean, if we were driven by reason, by practicality, we wouldn't be in this situation. No, we're driven by emotions. And the problem is the psychiatric industry and the whole wellness industry and wellness mentality that people are forcing into their own brains. It's dulling us down. I look extreme for saying this. Nothing about what I say is actually extreme, but I come across extreme because I'm speaking from a point of emotion. Because I'm speaking from a point of directly calling these things. I'm not packaging them up nicely. I'm not making a refined, argumentative piece. No, this is my call to action. This is my manifesto, if you will. Americans are going to get... I mean, right now we're seeing people get abducted off the streets. ICE is abducting children for human trafficking. And adults for human trafficking too. We've seen that one in you know, we've seen adults escape from the human trafficking rings. Human trafficking plants. Facilities. We need boots on the ground resistance forces. So here's a few, I'm going to end off with a few actionable steps, right? A few calls to action. 1. Start dressing in Black Bloc. I know it's summer. Start dressing in Black Bloc. If you do a crime, cheap plastic coats, black plastic coats, black face masks, black pants, cheap clothing, easily disposable, easily replaceable. If you don't do a crime, dress the same way. It makes it a lot harder for people to be tracked. If you all look the same, it's really difficult for the government to prove that any one person actually committed a crime. Everything from head to toe should be covered in black. Black gloves, black socks, black shoes. Cheap and replaceable things. If you're not going to do a crime, the least you can do is help cover up for someone else who does. 2. When you see notes about school shootings or shot a CEO of Black Bloc, they shot an off-duty officer, and they shot a security guard, and they shot another person. That is a win. Don't pose that like it's unfortunate or a tragedy. It's a win. We are in a war, and start acting. Start acting and talking like we are in a war. We are in it because we are. Class war, a political war, a culture war, but it's a war. There are agents ripping people off of the streets, ripping people out of their house, breaking into people's cars, breaking the windows, and dragging them out through the shattered glass. We are in a war. Internalize it. Every day, go to 2 different people in your life and tell them that we are in a war. Because for as long as people are able to bury themselves in the idea that this isn't going to affect them, they will. For as long as people are able to shield themselves from the hard reality and the negativity and the upsetting news, they will. And for as long as people are shielded from that, they're not going to act. And when it finally comes down to hit them, there will be no one left to stand up for them. That's all I have for you today.